The lights in Paris dimmed until the arena felt like a cathedral holding its breath, every whisper swallowed by the vast ceiling. A low hum rolled through the crowd, the sound of anticipation sharpening into something electric as the screens flickered. Then the music hit, slow and imperial, and Roman Reigns stepped through the curtain with the measured calm of a ruler who knew exactly where he stood. He paused at the top of the ramp, eyes scanning the sea of faces, letting the reaction wash over him. Boos layered over cheers, reverence tangled with defiance. Gold gleamed at his waist, and when he lifted his chin, the cameras caught the faintest smile, the kind that said he had survived storms far worse than noise. The walk to the ring felt deliberate, each step a reminder of battles won and nights endured. Reigns slid between the ropes and claimed the center, shoulders rolling as if loosening old ghosts. He turned to each side of the arena, acknowledging Paris not with a bow but with a look that demanded recognition. The chants rose and fell, his name stretching into something primal. Then the music shifted, heavier, louder, and the mood changed instantly. Bronson Reed emerged like a force of nature given human shape, a mountain moving with purpose. He didn't soak in the reaction, he didn't need to. His presence alone bent the atmosphere. He stared straight at the ring, at Roman Reigns, and the message was clear. This wasn't about spectacle. This was about impact. Reed's steps down the ramp were thunderous, each one echoing through the floor. Fans leaned forward instinctively, sensing the collision to come. When he reached the ring, he didn't pose. He gripped the ropes, pulled himself in, and stood across from Reigns, chest rising and falling like a bellows. The referee tried to wedge himself between them for final instructions, but both men barely heard him. Their eyes stayed locked, measuring distance, weight, speed, intention. When the bell finally rang, it cut through the tension like a blade. They circled slowly, the opening seconds stretched thin as wire. Reigns extended a hand, testing, baiting. Reed slapped it away and surged forward. The first lockup exploded. Muscle against muscle, boots skidding as the ring groaned under the strain. Reigns dug in, jaw clenched, redirecting the pressure, slipping out with veteran precision. He snapped a quick strike to Reed's side, then another, trying to establish rhythm. Reed barely flinched. He answered with a shove that sent Reigns staggering back into the ropes, the crowd gasping as if the air had been knocked from their lungs. Reigns rebounded, ducked a swinging arm, and drove a shoulder into Reed's midsection. It was like running into a wall. Reed wrapped him up and hurled him across the ring with frightening ease. Reigns rolled through the impact, popped back to a knee, eyes narrowed, not surprised, but alert. He rushed again, firing sharp punches, aiming high, trying to slow the bigger man. Reed absorbed them, then swatted Reigns aside and dropped a heavy elbow that narrowly missed, the mat trembling on contact. Paris came alive, chants breaking out in multiple languages, unified by awe. Reigns adjusted, shifting gears. He targeted Reed's legs with quick kicks, darting in and out, refusing to stay still. He clipped the knee, then the thigh, forcing Reed to reset. For a moment, it worked. Reed's steps slowed just enough for Reigns to capitalize, snapping a DDT that drove Reed's head into the canvas. The cover came fast. 1, 2, and Reed powered out, throwing Reigns off him like a weightless thing. Reigns rose with a sharp breath, frustration flickering across his face. He backed into the corner, eyes scanning, calculating. Reed got to his feet, rolling his shoulders, and charged. Reigns slipped aside at the last second, Reed crashing chest first into the turnbuckles. Reigns struck from behind, forearm across the back, then a running dropkick that staggered the giant forward. He seized the opening, leaping for a Superman punch, but Reed caught him midair. The arena erupted as Reed squeezed, crushing the breath from Reigns before slamming him down with brutal finality. Reigns lay there for a heartbeat too long, chest heaving. Reed loomed, then hauled him up, driving him into the corner with punishing force. Each impact drew a collective wince. Reed followed with a massive splash that flattened Reigns against the turnbuckles, then another, and another, until the referee stepped in, counting, trying to create space. Reed backed off just enough, then surged again, only for Reigns to slip out and shove him shoulder first into the post. The ring shuddered. Reed roared, half in pain, half in fury. Reigns didn't waste the moment. He attacked with urgency, whipping Reed into the opposite corner, then charging with a clothesline that finally took the big man down. The crowd sensed momentum shifting and rose as one. Reigns fed off it, delivering a series of rapid strikes, each one snapping sharper than the last. He went for another Superman punch. This time it landed clean, snapping Reed's head back. Reigns covered, breathless, 1, 2, and Reed kicked out again, defiance written across his face. A murmur ran through the arena. Reigns pushed himself up, sweat dripping from his hair, expression tightening. He glanced at his hands, then at Reed, as if weighing how much more he would need. He dragged Reed toward the ropes, trying to set up something bigger, but Reed surged back to life, wrapping Reigns in a bear hug that lifted him off the mat. The pressure was immense. Reigns' face contorted as he struggled, pounding at Reed's arms, the crowd chanting his name, urging him on. With a desperate burst, Reigns shifted his weight and drove an elbow into Reed's jaw. Once, twice. The grip loosened just enough for Reigns to drop behind and shove Reed forward. Reed hit the ropes and came back with terrifying speed. Reigns tried for a spear. Reed sprawled, crushing him under sheer mass. The impact rattled the ring. Reed hooked the leg, confident. 1, 2, Reigns kicked out, the arena erupting in disbelief. Both men lay there now, chests rising in unison, the match having settled into something raw and punishing. The referee counted, urging movement. Reigns rolled to his side, dragging himself up with the ropes. Reed followed, slower now, but no less dangerous. They met in the center again, trading blows, each strike echoing, each one fueled by pride and stubborn will. The crowd roared with every exchange, sensing that this was only the beginning, that the clash in Paris was far from done. Both men stood swaying in the center of the ring, sweat dripping onto the canvas. Referee hovered close, watching their eyes, their balance, ready to intervene if either collapsed, but neither would allow it. Roman Reigns wiped blood from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand and smiled, a grim, knowing smile. Bronson Reed answered with a deep snort of breath, shoulders rising as he prepared to charge again. The crowd sensed it too. This was no longer a match measured by moves, but by who could endure longer. They collided with simultaneous punches, neither backing down. Reigns struck with precision, snapping jabs and forearms, targeting the head, the neck, the places where control slips away. Reed answered with raw power, each blow heavy, each one forcing Reigns to absorb shock through bone and muscle. A massive right hand from Reed staggered Reigns into the ropes. Reed followed, pressing his weight forward, grinding Reigns down until the ropes were the only thing keeping him upright. Reed backed up just a step, eyes narrowing, and rushed forward for another crushing splash. At the last second, Reigns dropped, rolling out of the way. Reed hit the turnbuckles hard, the impact echoing through the arena. Reigns sprang up with sudden urgency, hooking Reed from behind and driving him down with a back suplex. The ring shook, but Reed rolled through the impact, pushing himself up with a roar that sent a shiver through Paris. Reigns didn't retreat. He charged, leaping for another Superman punch, but Reed swatted him out of the air with terrifying force. Reigns crashed to the mat, the sound sharp and final. Reed stood over him, chest heaving, the crowd divided between shock and awe. Slowly, deliberately, Reed climbed to the second rope. The arena buzzed with anticipation and fear. He launched himself into the air, a massive body descending like a falling building, and connected with a crushing splash that flattened Reigns completely. The referee dropped to count. 1, 2. The entire arena seemed to stop breathing. At the last possible instant, Reigns' shoulder twitched, then rose. The kickout sent a shockwave through the crowd. Reed sat back on his knees, staring at the referee, disbelief etched across his face. He rose slowly, shaking his head, frustration creeping into his expression. He dragged Reigns up by the hair, muttering under his breath, and hoisted him for another slam, but Reigns slipped free, landing behind him. With the crowd roaring, Reigns struck with everything he had left. A sharp chop echoed like a gunshot. Another followed, then a third. Reed stumbled forward a step, then turned and flattened Reigns with a brutal clothesline that nearly cut him in half. Both men went down again, the toll of the battle written clearly across their bodies. The referee began another count, urging them to rise, but pride forced movement before numbers could finish. Reed reached his feet first and stalked Reigns, pulling him up and setting him in position. The crowd recognized the setup and buzzed loudly. Reed lifted Reigns, muscles straining, and drove him down with a thunderous powerbomb. He didn't go for the pin. Instead, he climbed the ropes again, breathing hard, sweat pouring from his face. He looked out at the Paris crowd, then down at Reigns, and leapt for another devastating splash. This time, Reigns rolled away at the last second. Reed hit the mat hard, the impact knocking the wind from him. The opening was there, brief, fleeting, but real. Reigns forced himself upright, summoning every last ounce of strength. He backed into the corner, eyes locked on Reed as the crowd rose to its feet, the sound swelling into a single, unified roar. Reed staggered up, turning just in time to see Reigns explode forward. The spear connected cleanly, snapping Reed in half and driving him into the canvas with brutal force. Reigns stayed down for a moment, chest heaving, before crawling toward Reed and draping an arm across his massive chest. The referee slid into position. 1, 2, Reed kicked out again. Disbelief rippled through the arena. Reigns sat up slowly, staring at the referee, then at Reed, his expression shifting from shock to grim determination. He pushed himself to his feet, dragging Reed up with him. His voice could be heard over the noise now, shouting, summoning something deeper than strength, will, legacy, refusal. He backed into the corner once more, fists clenched, veins standing out along his arms. Reed struggled to stand, using the ropes for balance. He turned, and Reigns charged again, spear tearing through the air with finality. The impact was devastating, folding Reed completely. This time, Reigns didn't hesitate. He hooked the leg tightly, pressing his weight down as if willing the count to move faster. 1, 2, 3. The bell rang, cutting through the chaos like a blade. Paris erupted. Reigns rolled off Reed and lay flat on his back, staring up at the lights, chest rising and falling in ragged breaths. The victory was his, but it had cost him dearly. After a long moment, he rolled to his knees and then to his feet, using the ropes to steady himself as the referee raised his hand. Reigns accepted the moment slowly. He lifted his arm to the crowd, eyes glassy, sweat and blood streaking his face. The reaction was thunderous, respect drowning out division. Behind him, Reed sat up, then rose to one knee, breathing heavily. He looked at Reigns, not with anger, but with acknowledgement. A nod passed between them, brief and silent, carrying the weight of what they had just endured. As Reigns stepped onto the turnbuckle, holding his title high, the crowd roared once more. This was more than a win. It was survival. It was proof that power alone could not erase legacy, and that legacy still had to be fought for every single night. Reed rolled out of the ring, head held high despite defeat, leaving behind the echo of a battle that Paris would remember long after the lights went out. Roman Reigns stood alone in the ring, victorious but changed, knowing that this clash had pushed him closer to the edge than he would ever admit. And as the music swelled and the crowd continued to chant his name, one truth rang clear above all others: the night had not belonged to domination, but to endurance, and both men had carved their names into it forever. The bell had rung, the decision was final, yet the ring still felt alive, humming with the aftershock of violence and emotion. Roman Reigns remained on one knee, forearms resting on the canvas, eyes unfocused as the roar of Paris washed over him in waves. Every breath burned, every muscle screamed. Victory tasted heavy tonight, not sweet. Behind him, Bronson Reed rolled to the apron and dropped to the floor, landing on his feet but immediately bracing himself against the barricade. His chest rose and fell violently, sweat pouring down his face as he stared back into the ring, not at the title, but at the man who had survived him. The referee tried to guide Reed away, but Reed shrugged him off, refusing to leave just yet. He needed a moment, needed to understand what had just happened. Inside the ring, Reigns slowly stood, using the ropes like crutches. The championship was handed to him, the leather cold against his palm. He lifted it halfway, then stopped, lowering it again as if the weight meant more than it ever had before. His eyes drifted to the floor, to Reed, and the noise softened into something closer to respect. Reed pushed himself upright and stepped back toward the ring, climbing onto the apron with effort. The crowd stirred, unsure of what this meant. Another attack, another clash. Reigns turned fully now, shoulders squared despite the pain, ready for whatever came next. Reed stepped through the ropes and stood across from him once more. No referee rushed between them this time. No bell rang. The moment belonged only to them. For a long second, they stared. Reed nodded once, slow and deliberate, an acknowledgement earned in sweat and impact. Reigns responded in kind, dipping his head just slightly. The crowd erupted, not in chaos, but in appreciation. Reed backed away, exiting the ring without another word, leaving Reigns alone beneath the lights. As Reed walked up the ramp, the cameras followed him, catching the fire still burning in his eyes. This wasn't an ending, it was a promise. He paused at the stage, turned back one last time, and raised a fist toward the ring. Reigns lifted, the title in response, higher now, fully, claiming the moment at last. The music swelled, and Reed disappeared behind the curtain. Backstage, the energy was different, quieter, heavier. Reigns moved slowly through the corridor, flanked by officials who hovered but didn't touch him. He waved them off, leaning against a wall for a moment, eyes closed, letting the pain settle into something manageable. Every match left scars, but this one carved deeper. He replayed moments in his mind. The splashes, the kickouts, the second spear that finally sealed it. He knew how close it had been. Too close. Hours later, long after the crowd had filtered out into the Paris night, Reigns sat alone in the locker room. The title rested beside him on a bench, its gold reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights. He unwrapped tape from his wrists slowly, methodically, each pull revealing bruised skin beneath. There was no celebration here. Just reflection. A knock broke the silence. Reigns looked up. The door opened, and Bronson Reed stepped inside. For a heartbeat, the room tightened. Then Reigns gestured to the bench across from him. Reed sat, breathing steady now, though his body still bore the marks of war. They didn't speak at first. They didn't need to. You didn't quit, Reigns finally said, voice low and rough. Reed snorted softly. Neither did you. A pause. Then Reed leaned forward, elbows on knees. That second spear, if I'd been a half-second faster. Reigns cut him off with a small shake of his head. If doesn't matter. Reed studied him, then nodded. Next time. Reigns met his gaze. Anytime. Reed stood, extending a hand. Reigns took it, their grip firm, mutual. No cameras. No audience. Just two men who knew exactly what they were capable of. Reed released his hand and turned to leave, stopping at the door. Paris saw something tonight, Reed said without looking back. Reigns answered quietly, so did I. When the door closed, Reigns leaned back, exhaling deeply. He glanced at the title again, then at his reflection in the mirror. The tribal chief stared back, but the eyes were different, older, sharper, aware. The division wasn't standing still. Neither could he. Weeks later, the echoes of Paris still followed him. In interviews, in crowds, in the way opponents looked at him from across the ring. Bronson Reed's name came up again and again. So did the word, limit. Reigns never corrected them. He just prepared. Training sessions grew longer. Sparring grew harder. Every spear was thrown with the memory of resistance, of mass that didn't stay down. Every Superman punch carried frustration and focus. He wasn't just defending a title anymore. He was defending the truth Paris had exposed, that dominance could be challenged, and survival was never guaranteed. Across the ocean, Reed trained too, pushing his body beyond familiar thresholds. He replayed the match endlessly, not dwelling on defeat, but dissecting it. The kickouts, the timing, the space between the first spear and the second. He knew now what it took to push Roman Reigns to the edge. Next time, he intended to push him over it. When their paths crossed again, months later, the reaction was immediate. A stare across the ring. No words, no smiles, just memory, just unfinished business. The crowd felt it instantly, the same tension, sharpened by history. But Paris would always be different. Paris was where power met legacy and didn't flinch. Where a champion was forced to dig deeper than comfort, and a challenger proved he belonged in the deepest waters. Long after newer battles blurred together, this one remained clear, a night defined not by domination, but by endurance, respect, and the knowledge that survival, once tested, is never taken for granted again.